Welcome to Inside the Outside. I'm Gary Kirk.
And I'm Christy Kirk.
This week we're talking to everyone's favorite YouTube backpacker, Spiguyver.
He's going to share some of his trail wisdom with us and so much more.
So, Christy, before we get into this interview with Spiguyver, let's catch everybody up with all the things that's been going on in our life.
It has been a busy few weeks since the last time we sat down.
Yeah, no doubt. I feel like we've literally been running all over the place. Just yesterday, we did our second 5K race of the year.
Yeah, we did. And that, for you, is two more than you've done in the past 5 or 6 years.
Maybe 10, but who's counting?
Yeah, we did.
Nobody's keeping score.
There's a great series here in North Carolina. It's a coastal series, so it's on the beach. How can that be bad?
Yeah.
And we've done the first 2 in the series so far this year.
Yeah, I know a lot of people talk about running at the beach, beautiful views. Personally, mine is the elevation gain, or lack thereof. I checked our race yesterday. It was a total elevation gain of 21 feet.
Yeah, it's nice to have a flat run.
Yeah, definitely so. Yesterday's race was cold. It was rainy, but we made it with smiles from beginning to end.
And it's going to be cold and rainy this time of the year anyway in North Carolina. So I'd rather have cold and rainy at the beach than almost any place else. So it's a win all around.
Yeah, definitely so. The race before this one last month was at Holden Beach. It did have an elevation gain of somewhere almost 60 feet. I don't know where. It didn't feel like it, but yeah, it was 50 some feet I saw on my race tracker.
Yeah, no. And this past one was at Oak Island. So again, fun little beach towns in North Carolina to visit. It's the Coastal Race Series. Certainly worth checking out. And we'll leave a link to the show notes because there are several more races in the series. And
yeah. I'm glad you talked me into it because they've got some really cool T-shirts. They've got really, really cool medals.
Yeah.
Flat terrain, beach views, really nice. The next one is at Sunset Beach next month. Yeah. So I'm already looking forward to that. And I'll say it's, well, I've never looked forward to running. So
see,
maybe a beer run.
This is working for you. And these are not beer runs. These are just runs.
They do give away free beer.
Yeah. But
however, I'm usually not in the mood for a beer after running 5K and it's 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that's the last thing I want. I never want a beer at the end of these races. But for some people, it's a motivator. One of the things I really like, too, about this series is that we're getting to explore beach towns here in North Carolina that we wouldn't have seen otherwise. And North Carolina, has an entire coast. And there are a lot of little beach towns that we found through this run. So that's been nice. Yeah,
Southport has been the hidden gem. I don't know how we've overlooked it all the years that we've been coming in this area, but absolutely love that place.
Yeah, I'm ready to move. But yeah, that's the sweetest town going. And you recently had a pretty cool trip and you were hosting another podcast. You were cheating on Inside the Outside while you were away.
Well, every now and then you got to do what you got to do. My mistress was in Amsterdam. I was hosting a podcast there while attending the Integrated Systems Europe trade show. I was over there with Rave Publications. It's an online publication for all things AV. And this trade show was absolutely awesome. It's the largest trade show in the world for AV systems integration. And I'm an AV nerd. So it was absolute heaven for me. It was an exhausting work schedule because I did 55 podcasts over the course of 4 days. Never had anything quite like that, but we managed to make it through it. And I got to see some of the coolest AV tech that I've ever seen in my life and hang out in one of the coolest cities in the world.
Yeah. For people who don't know, AV means audio visual. It's like when
correct.
You were in school and they would call the AV department to bring in the projector so you could watch a film.
Yeah, I was the nerd rolling the projector into the room, but now I'm the nerd that gets to check out all these 4K, 8K, 16K displays and gallivant across the world.
Yeah. So you've come a long way since the film strips.
Definitely so. I would highly encourage anybody, if they want to see some really cool tech, go check out ravepubs.com, and their website can really fill you in on all things audio visual. And we definitely have some highlights there for the trade show, as well as you can listen to all 55 of those amazing podcasts I did.
I'm sure they're terrific, but I'm not signing up for that.
All right. So I hear you have a cool trip coming up.
Well, I'm in the Princess Run, the Disney Princess Run. Disney does so many great run weekends. And with my running friends, we've been planning this for a year. So we will be princesses in just a few days, running in our tutus and having a great time.
Well, that does sound like a lot of fun. I'm not interested in getting in a tutu and running for, a half marathon.
Men can wear tutus too.
Absolutely, they can. I will think about that while I'm here tending to children.
And animals. Don't forget the animals.
Yeah, they kind of tend to themselves.
No, they do not.
While you're away, the cats will play.
Yeah. Okay. And we talked about the Frosty Butt Hang for a while, and we can catch everyone up on that. First of all, the first catch up is that I bailed because it was too frosty for this butt. So I ended up not doing it. But you went.
I did. I went, had a really good time. It was the first Frosty Butt Hang that I've ever done. While I've definitely camped out and hung out in some cold temperatures, this was the first group hang that I've ever done. And Gunner and Terminator, the hosts for this particular event, did a really good job of making me feel welcome. They fed everybody like kings. That's one thing I've noticed about these hammock hanging events is the food is as big of a draw as anything, because you always eat really good. And we got to hang out and stay warm by the campfire. Met a lot of really cool people. The temperatures got down in the low 20s, so it was definitely frosty at night. I had a little bit of ice on my tarp when I woke up the next morning. But really, really good trip. I encourage anybody to look into this. They do it every year. They do about 4 events a year, and I'll definitely be posting about those on the website, and we'll make sure to include those in the show notes as well. I've got another hang that's coming up this coming weekend called the Heartthrob Hang, and that's with Tar Heel State Hangers. Looking forward to doing that one. It's going to be over at Falls Lake, so if you're in the area and you're interested, you should definitely check out the Tar Heel State Hangers Facebook page. We'll have a link in the show notes, and if you want to come hang out with us, I would love to have you come over and join us.
Well, while you hang with the Heartthrobs in the February temperatures, I'll be basking in the Florida sunshine, so have fun. Sorry, I won't be there. In the meantime, let's get into this interview with Spiguyver and hear all of his trail wisdom. He's got some great ideas to offer up.
Well, Mark, we really appreciate you taking some time out of your day today to join us. The first question off the top of my head, and a lot of people probably have the same one. How did you get the name Spiguyver?
So this one's kind of an interesting one that it comes up from time to time, but I used to be really into rock climbing. And so in school, I got the nickname Spider. And so that kind of started the whole thing. So that's where the beginning part of that comes from. My friend Sherpa Man and I, we were out doing what we called the Hike for Hope. It was a 110-mile hike through Shenandoah, raising money for diabetes. And we were kind of hiking with a group of people, and we had a pocket rocket stove that wasn't working right. And so I was messing around with it, ended up sticking some twigs down in the actual canister and screwing it on and getting it to work again. And so someone said something about being me MacGyver in it. And so the two got kind of thrown together, and you've got Spider and MacGyver slapping together, and you've got Spiguyver. So that's kind of how it was born.
I love it. Trail names always have some kind of a backstory. That's awesome. So have you always been an outdoors person? Is this something new to you? How long have you been doing this kind of thing?
So, yeah, I've always been an outdoors person. I grew up in upstate New York, between my family's property, my grandmother's property, and then we backed up to a state forest. I had just miles and miles of wilderness to just play around in. And so just growing up, I was always out in the woods, always exploring, doing things. Didn't really call it backpacking back then, but that's pretty much what me and a couple of friends did all the time. And growing up, it just kind of became my thing. It kind of went away a little bit when I went off to school. But then I joined the Air Force, and I ended up stationed out in Northern California, and found it again, and found the Sierras, and spent a ton of time just out in the woods, up in the Sierras, exploring, climbing, doing anything I could to get outside. And then I moved around a lot after I joined the military, and got to some places where backpacking and hiking just really weren't all that accessible. And so I really got into mountain biking for a while, and did that for about 10 years. And then just probably in the last 5-6 years have kind of gotten back into it, and have just gone full tilt into it.
I wonder how you segued from being someone who just loves being outdoors to someone who loves being outdoors, but now is a YouTube celebrity.
Well, I don't know if I go as far as to say celebrity, but so it all started. I was filming a lot when I was doing mountain biking. I would film like pre-rides of race courses and stuff to be able to visualize it. It was kind of a tool for me. And once I got back into the hiking thing, there was a group of 3 of us. So my friend Jeremy, who's Sherpa Man, and Mike, who is Beekeeper, we got together and we went up into the high peaks region of the Adirondacks. And it was going to be this epic adventure. There were climbs that were ridiculous that I really wanted to capture and be able to look back on down the road, and to share with my family. So I had the camera, and so we went out and did this, and that's kind of where this YouTube thing started from. And I enjoyed it. It slows me down a little bit on the trail and makes me look at what's around me a little bit more. So I think I see more now that I'm doing this.
Do people ever recognize you on the trail from your YouTube videos?
I've actually had a couple. My friend Rain Man, who I go out with quite a bit now, he recognized me out on the trail. I was up in like Devil's Den in Arkansas. I was out on a trail, 8-10 miles out in the woods, and this guy happens to go, "Hey, you don't happen to have a YouTube channel, do you?" So it's happened a couple times. I was on the Laurel Highlands hiking trail with Outdoor Adventures, Frozen, and Gary and Meerkat, and we happened to go into one of the camping areas, the shelter areas, and somebody yells out to us and says, "Hey, Spiguyver." It happens to be another YouTuber, so it's kind of cool. It was Restless Outdoors, so that was kind of neat.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. So I know you typically do hammock camping now.
So it was actually when I got back into doing the backpacking thing. I had spent years and years doing the tent thing and loved it, but I honestly never sleep all that well on the ground. I toss and turn a lot. I'm a side and belly sleeper, and I found that I flip-flopped so much that I would end up off my pad, or the pad would slip out from under me, or I didn't have a thick enough pad, so it wasn't all that comfortable. So fast forward, go through the mountain bike thing and get back into it, and I start looking at, what's going to make me the most comfortable. And I'm doing research into backpacking and ultralight backpacking because I knew I wanted to go light. And I found Dutchware gear, and I found hammock forums, and I started looking at this stuff, and I was like, why not? So I went ahead and bought one and jumped right in.
So what was your first hammock? Was it a Dutch hammock, a Hennessy?
It was a Dutch hammock. It was a 10-foot double layer 1.0. Because at the time I didn't know that I was going to like it, and so I went with the double layer so I could stick a pad in between, because I'd done all the research, and I know everyone wanted to to have the underquilts, but I had a cheap sleeping pad, so I figured I might as well use that. So I went with it was a netless. It didn't have a ridgeline, so I ended up putting a ridgeline on it, and then it ended up buying a button-a-sling nano buginator, kind of a Franke style bug net, and added it to it, and then ended up buying a sock for it down the road. And then, as I got into the YouTube thing, Dutch and I kind of hooked up a couple of times. I think we hooked up down at HangCon, and actually no, it was prior to that when I said I was going to go to HangCon. He reached out, and that was when he was coming out with the Chameleon, and so I got to be one of the first people to test the Chameleon, which was pretty cool.
So what's your rig now?
I go back and forth. The problem is I end up testing so many different things that I've got a closet full of gear, and I don't like to get rid of them, especially if I like them at all. And then I've got the dilemma of which one do I take. So I'm actually leaving Wednesday night, going out for a 4-day trip, and I'm taking the Chameleon.
All right, so I have to make a confession. I have watched you boil water more times than I ever care to openly admit. I'm a stove junkie myself. I've built a bunch of the different, soda can stoves, the cat cans, you name it. I'm curious, as another stove junkie, tell me about some of your favorite stoves.
Man, it's an addicting habit to get into watching boiling water.
There are worse things that we could be doing with our spare time.
That is for sure. My wife will probably agree with that. So I think the Spiguyver stove, just because I kind of came up with that and have been going with it, it would be my favorite if on the Eagle Rock loop I hadn't knocked it over twice. I had never had a problem with that, but I was cold. I was probably hypothermic and not moving quite as well as I could, and I knocked it over twice. And that, to me, bothered me that, I could be responsible for starting a forest fire.
Oh, yeah. And
the responsible side of me said, okay, maybe we need to look at a different one. So I've been playing around with a lot of different ones, as you could tell from the videos. An old favorite, even back before I got out of backpacking the first time, the brass light stoves have always been something I like. Aaron, who makes those, I don't think he actually hand makes them anymore, but he was hand making them, and they were just kind of works of art. Really cool, but they're heavy. I mean, really, they're a lot heavier than a lot of them out there. Recently, I started testing the Caldera cone systems and that Zelf Starlight modified. Because I use a smaller pot, the 550, that modified with the smaller burn hole in the middle works really well. Plus, you can blow it out. You can turn it over. It doesn't spill. It's just, to me, a little bit safer. Now, if you're talking about canister stoves, I started out with the Pocket Rocket. That's where the Spiguyver name kind of evolved from. So that one's still one of my favorites. This weekend, when I go out, I'm going out with Rain Man, and he's got a brand new the Soto Windmaster, which is one of those that I've been really wanting to check out. He's got an Amicus and now the Windmaster, so he's bringing the Windmaster, and I want to check that one out.
So I'm curious, when people first start out, this is one of those areas that you could really get down in the weeds on about what is the best stove. And I know there's no one perfect stove for any one person or situation, but for that amateur or that novice that is just getting started, what would you say is a good go-to stove for just your average outdoors person getting started?
I would say the perfect one is the Pocket Rocket. I mean, while I love alcohol stoves, there's too much fiddling with those for some people. Not as quick as some people want. A Pocket Rocket, MSR Pocket Rocket, you just screw it onto the canister, light it, and go. Hot burning stove, works with a wide range of pots. I think it's a great one.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree there. I personally like the alcohol. I've got a sort of a Trangia knockoff stove. I like it, but for the simplicity of it, for years I used different canister stoves, and they're just simple. Like you said, screw it on there, fire it up, and you're cooking in no time.
Yeah, definitely easy. I mean, just quick, easy. Hard to mess up.
And I know you're a stove expert, but you do so many gear reviews. What are some things that are really top of your list right now? I do
a ton of gear reviews. I actually, it's crazy the amount of emails I get with people asking me to review things. And I actually have gotten to the point where 90% of them I'm telling them no, just because it's not something that I personally would use or that I think my viewers would want to see or use. So I've kind of backed away from that. But my go-to stuff is it's kind of always the same stuff. I've got a set of 50, a set of 20, and a set of 0 quilts that pretty much are my go-to quilts. The 50 set is Loco Libre. The 20-degree set is UGQ, and then the 0-degree set is hammock gear. I've most of the time will either be using a Dream Hammock Sparrow or Darien or my Chameleon. So those are my kind of go-tos there. And then I experiment with different backpacks all the time. But when I'm in between packs, like right now, I sold my Appalachian Ultralight when I'm waiting on another custom one to be built and shipped to me. I fall back to my ULA packs. So those are kind of the go-to, always there in the closet, not getting rid of them type things.
So when you hit the woods, what kind of camping do you really like to do? I know I've seen videos of all different kinds, but if you could pick just one hike right now, would it be a long hike, short hike, car camping with the family? What gets you going?
I enjoy the long ones. I like getting out for multiple days. The longer the better. I would absolutely love to at some point do a through hike, but with a wife and 3 kids and a mortgage, that's tough to swing. I'm envious of some of the guys that are single, able to get out there and do it. But I love my life. Not gonna trade that in for a hike. I try and do one long hike every year. Last year it was the Whites. It was 100 miles through the Whites. Did 8 days up there. So those are the ones that I really look forward to.
And do your family, wife, kids, or anything, do they get out there with you any?
Not very often. Occasionally, I will be able to get a kid to go do an overnighter with me. My wife will only do day hikes. She actually called me out pretty good in the family video I put up a couple of weeks ago. So I ordered some gear for her because she called me out for having all the gear and not having any for her.
Sure. I'll tell you the trick that I pulled with Christy, and it was actually her suggestion. She said, the only way you're ever going to get me to do this backpacking thing is you have to hike me so far that I'll be tired and won't want to go back to the car. So, I didn't have to trick her into it. It was her suggestion, but, she's like, this is the only way you're ever going to get me to do this.
Yeah, I love the long
I've
hikes.
taken my wife out.
But I don't like camping. I mean, that's the truth of it. But I love the long hikes, so I have to camp.
It's the price of admission.
Yeah, to make it happen.
No, that's cool. How far do you guys go?
The longest one we've done consecutively was 40 miles in Shenandoah, and that was over the course of, was it 5 days? I think.
I don't feel like it was that long. But anyway,
yeah.
40,
I remember
50
the
miles.
mileage, but I'm not sure about the days. It was either 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, that's been our longest
that's
so
awesome.
far. And then we've done a section of Appalachian Trail. That was our very first.
Yeah, the first real backpacking trip that I got her to go on that was multiple days was in the Great Smoky Mountains and on the AT. It was tough. We learned a lot of lessons. I learned that I was not a backpacker. I thought that I had backpacked, but I'd actually just walked through the woods with a backpack and camped some places. But you learn a lot when you have to do it for real.
Yeah, and that's when
Yes.
I became a fan of ultralight.
Oh yeah, we came back and immediately said, all right, there's no need to buy stuff. We need to get rid of stuff. So we started shedding pounds.
And now we weigh everything. So we made a lot of mistakes those first long hikes. I wonder, with your experience, what are some tips or ideas you could share with people just getting started that might help them avoid some of those hardships?
Yeah. So for beginners, I'm actually, I was right before coming on here, I was putting together a list of videos that I want to put together for beginner backpackers. And one of the things that I tell a lot of people, and it's kind of counterintuitive, a lot of people think you start with the backpack, or you start with getting all your gear and then you figure out which backpack it'll fit into. I'm of the opposite mindset. I say you go with the smallest backpack you can reasonably think you can get away with, and then buy the stuff to fit in it. And if it doesn't fit, you don't take it.
That is such a good tip. I know I recently, a couple of years ago, switched out from having these backpacks that had lots of pockets on it, because it seemed like if I had a pocket, that meant I had to put something in it. So now I just go with the single compartment backpack and try to not fill it up.
Yeah. It's tough.
Yeah. Any other tips for people heading out?
Start slow. I think especially for people that are trying to do like the AT, that's probably the biggest killer, is people just try to bite off too much. It's actually a conversation that I'm having for the Hang Your Own Hang podcast is, too many people are trying to do, in my opinion anyway, too many people are trying to do the fastest known time thing and making this activity a competition. That's one of the things I like about this, is that it's not a competition. You're getting away from the, I did this faster than you type thing. It's supposed to be enjoyable. To me, that's kind of putting something on it that I personally don't think belongs on it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good mindset to have. I don't think you should go out there with the goal of trying to do mileage that you've heard of other people doing, or times that you've heard other people doing. It's cliche, the whole hike your own hike, hang your own hang, that kind of stuff. But it really is true. Go out there and enjoy yourself. Who cares if you go 15 or 20 miles in a day? If you go 5 quality miles, you've had a really good time.
Yeah. And is it going to look any different 15 miles down the trail or 5 miles down the trail? No, probably not. It's just a matter of getting out there and doing something. Sometimes it's more about just being out there than how many miles you put in or the destination even.
That's true. But I would love to have a support team that met me at each stop and had everything set up and the food ready.
Yeah.
I do like that part of those record setting speed hikes.
I think they call that the Bear Grylls approach, right?
Right.
I'm not opposed to that.
So you mentioned that you like to do a big trip every year. What do you got planned or in the works for this year?
Unfortunately, this year I don't have anything really that big planned as far as hiking goes. We've got a couple of big family trips this year. We've got a big Alaskan cruise that I'm really looking forward to.
Nice, yeah.
And I have set up an excursion out onto some of the glaciers to do like some ice cave exploring and stuff. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to. But I think as far as backpacking trips, some 4-day ones where I can stretch a weekend a little bit longer is about as good as it's going to get.
Yeah, the ice caves, that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Well, we've loved having you on the show today, Mark. It's been such a pleasure. And as we're wrapping up, I wonder if you have any last words of wisdom you'd like to share with our listeners.
Well, first, I want to thank you guys for having me on. This has been really cool. I've gone back and listened to a lot of the previous episodes and heard some of my friends on here, Chris Gherkin and Scott Buff and those guys and Warren. So really cool to be a part of this. And I hope to see you guys just grow and explode and just keep this thing going. As far as things for the listeners, be humble. we were all beginners at some point. We're all still learning. Take the time to help somebody that's just getting into it. Show them the ropes, walk them through some of your thought process, and help them get into it. This isn't a competitive sport where you're trying to outdo somebody. I know people throw around their weights of their backpacks and how many miles they're doing. And that can be intimidating to someone getting into it. So just share your experiences with them and help them get out there so that they can enjoy it. Get out and explore. Sometimes getting off the trail and exploring those unseen areas can be extremely, extremely rewarding. You may not cover the miles, but it's something different than what everyone else sees.
I couldn't say it better myself. Those are great words to end on. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you both. I really appreciate it.
Inside the Outside is proudly brought to you by Terrapin Outfitters. Terrapin Outfitters is an innovative company that specializes in developing clothing and gear that enhance people's enjoyment of outdoor activities. Check them out at terrapinoutfitters.com.
And follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Look for the handle Inside the Outside Show.
For links to our social media and other stuff that we talk about in the show, be sure to check out the show notes and our website, InsideTheOutsideShow.com.